Listen up, folks, because I'm about to lay out the craziest HOA Karen meltdown that ever turned our sleepy little Maplewood Grove into a full-blown suburban soap opera. Picture it. Rows of identical beige houses with manicured lawns so perfect they look photoshopped, kids riding bikes on wide sidewalks, and that fake friendly wave you give your neighbors while secretly judging their mailbox color. On the surface, it was the American dream wrapped in white picket fences and HOA covenants thicker than a phone book. But underneath, pure control-freak tyranny disguised as community standards. My neighbor Nathan Hale lived 3 doors down, quiet guy, mid-30s, single dad raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily after his wife Sarah passed in that awful car wreck 2 years back. Nathan worked 12 years as a state fire safety inspector before moving here. He knew more about ignition points than most people know about their own coffee order. He'd built Lily a little cedar playhouse in the backyard, fire-treated lumber, sealed roof, the works, right after Sarah died. It was her safe space, painted bright yellow with purple flowers, where she'd sit for hours humming and drawing pictures of her mom. You could see the kid light up every time she stepped inside. Heartbreaking and heartwarming all at once. Then one sunny Tuesday morning, Karen Langley, Deborah Langley, president of the Maplewood Grove HOA, strutted into Nathan's yard like she owned the deed. Clipboard under one arm, pastel cardigan buttoned to the throat, fake smile that never reached her eyes. She pointed one manicured finger at that innocent little playhouse like it had personally insulted her. "This structure violates fire safety protocol," she announced in that clipped, "I'm better than you tone every HOA Karen perfects. It's a hazard. You're tearing it down today." Nathan stepped between her and the playhouse door, calm as ever. Lily's little voice drifted out the window. "Daddy, I'm almost done painting the shutters." Deborah didn't even glance at the kid. She just shoved the violation notice into Nathan's chest. "My authority supersedes whatever DIY project you think you're running here." Nathan looked at the paper, folded it once, and slid it into his back pocket like it was a grocery list. "It's fire-treated cedar," he said evenly. "Past every code that matters. But hey, before you lecture me on safety, maybe check the junction box right behind my fence. It's running hotter than your temper this morning." Deborah's clipboard froze midair. For half a second, her Botox-smooth face actually twitched. "There's no issue with that box," she snapped. "We verified it internally." Nathan just smiled that small, knowing smile. "Internally? Cute. Tell you what. You keep pretending your little clipboard gives you God powers, and I'll keep noting the scorch marks on the grass. Your move, Madam President." She spun on her heel and stormed off, leaving the notice fluttering behind her like a defeated flag. But folks, that wasn't the end. That was the spark. Because while Deborah was out here playing neighborhood dictator over a kid's playhouse, the real fire hazard she'd created was humming away right under everyone's noses. And Nathan? He wasn't mad. He was already watching, already documenting, already waiting for the perfect moment to let her own rules blow up in her face. You could feel the tension crackling in the air like that overheated junction box itself. And trust me, it was only getting started. The next few weeks were classic HOA Karen escalation theater, and Maplewood Grove ate it up like free coffee at the annual block party. Deborah started with the petty stuff, the kind of nonsense that makes you roll your eyes until you realize it's death by 1,000 fines. First came the non-compliant exterior structure, warning taped to Nathan's door at 7 a.m. Then the $150 fine for unauthorized wood addition within 10 feet of utility infrastructure. Then the nasty gram about visual blight affecting property values. She even got the neighborhood Facebook group buzzing with anonymous posts. Some people think rules don't apply to them, especially when there's a child involved. Sad. Nathan never yelled. Never posted back. He just nodded politely at the next board compliance walk and kept taking photos of that junction box every morning. The metal casing was warm to the touch by day 3. By day 10, it was vibrating like an angry beehive. Scorched grass ringed the base. Nathan knew the signs. He'd investigated enough transformer fires in his old job to recognize a system someone had pushed past its breaking point. One evening, I caught him out there with his phone, crouched low so the streetlights didn't catch the flash. "You really think she's ignoring this?" I asked. He looked up, eyes tired but steady. "Ignoring? Nah. She caused it. Rerouted extra load last month to power that ridiculous hot tub she installed behind her own house, the one she conveniently exempted from every rule she wrote. Nate, the maintenance guy, let it slip when he thought no one was listening. She told him, make it work, and buried the paperwork. That was the first real crack. Nate Rivera, poor overworked contractor who actually kept the lights on, started showing up at odd hours, toolbox in hand, looking like a man carrying secrets too heavy for his paycheck. He'd nod at Nathan, glance at Deborah's house across the cul-de-sac, and mutter things like, she said it was temporary, or the log disappeared again. Meanwhile, Deborah doubled down. She called an emergency safety review meeting at the clubhouse and spent 40 minutes droning about irresponsible residents endangering the community with unpermitted builds. Every eye in the room slid toward Nathan. She never said his name, but the message was clear: comply or else. Nathan raised his hand at the end, voice calm as a summer breeze. While we're on safety, Deborah, how's the load balance on the grid? Because the junction behind my fence hit 142 degrees yesterday. That's not a suggestion, that's physics. The room went dead quiet. Deborah's face flushed the color of cheap rose. Internal matter, she hissed. Not open for discussion. But the flicker happened right then. The overhead lights dimmed for 2 full seconds, like the whole neighborhood was winking. A few people gasped. Deborah pretended she didn't notice and slammed the gavel on some new rule about mailbox height. Classic move. When you can't defend the truth, change the subject and find someone else. That night, Nathan sat on his back porch with Lily curled against his side, watching fireflies while the junction hummed louder than the crickets. Daddy, why does Mrs. Langley hate our house? Lily asked in that small voice that breaks your heart. Nathan kissed the top of her head. She doesn't hate the house, sweetheart. She just loves being in charge more than she loves being right. He didn't tell her the rest, that the woman who'd banned their playhouse had secretly overloaded the very grid meant to protect them. He just held his daughter tighter and kept taking notes. Because patience wasn't weakness. It was the loaded gun pointed right back at Deborah Langley. And the safety was already off. Here's where the plot twisted so hard it could snap necks, folks. 2 weeks after the flickering light showdown, Nate Rivera showed up at Nathan's back gate after dark, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 days. He was clutching a small black device, one of those handheld load testers the pros use. She can't know I gave you this, he whispered. But I can't sleep knowing what she did. Turns out Deborah hadn't just rerouted power for her fancy hot tub. She'd forced Nate to bypass 3 safety protocols so her backyard spa could run at full blast without tripping the main meter. The junction behind Nathan's fence was carrying the extra load, and the data on that tester showed a short-lived flare-up 3 weeks earlier. A real, honest-to-God electrical arc that should have triggered an automatic state report. Deborah deleted the log, told Nate to handle it internally, and went right back to harassing Nathan over a kid's playhouse. Nathan plugged the device into his laptop right there on the porch. The numbers didn't lie. Red spikes, temperature surges, timestamps matching the exact week Deborah's hot tub went online. Lily was asleep inside, dreaming safe in the very structure Deborah wanted gone, while the woman in charge had quietly turned their neighborhood into a potential bonfire. The next morning, Nathan didn't storm the HOA office. He did something smarter. He drove to the county fire marshal's training yard, old habit from his inspector days, and ran the data against known ignition patterns. When he came back, his face was grim, but his eyes were lit up like Christmas. She didn't just break one rule, he told me over the fence. She violated the same fire code she's been weaponizing against everyone else. Her spa installation? 0 permits, 0 inspections, and directly tied to the overload. Irony's thicker than her denial. Deborah must have smelled trouble because the harassment went nuclear. She slapped Nathan with a $500 repeated violation fine and started a whisper campaign about unstable single parents endangering children. The neighborhood busybodies ate it up until the lights started flickering every evening like a horror movie. People began knocking on Nathan's door asking, "Is something actually wrong with the power?" Nathan just smiled that quiet smile and said, "Ask your president. She's the safety expert." The real gut punch came at Lily's birthday party. Deborah showed up uninvited, clipboard in hand, of course, and announced in front of all the kids that certain structures must be removed for everyone's protection. Lily's face crumpled. Nathan knelt, wiped her tears, and looked Deborah dead in the eye. Funny how you're so worried about my daughter's playhouse when your own backyard spa is the one sitting on top of a live electrical violation. Want to explain that to the state marshal when he shows up? Deborah's smile froze like cheap plastic in winter. For the first time, she looked genuinely scared. Because the twist wasn't just that she'd caused the hazard. It was that Nathan now had the paper trail proving she'd lied to the entire board, falsified reports, and risked every house on the block just to soak in bubbles without paying extra on her electric bill. The Queen of Rules had broken every single one, and the kingdom was about to crumble. Tension in Maplewood Grove hit DEFCON 1 after that birthday party bombshell. Deborah tried to rally the troops with an emergency compliance forum at the clubhouse, but half the neighbors showed up already side-eyeing her. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and fear. Nathan walked in last, carrying nothing but a slim folder and that same calm expression that said he already knew how this movie ended. Deborah launched into her greatest hits. We cannot allow rogue structures to compromise community safety. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Someone in the back muttered, "Maybe the real rogue structure is your hot tub, Deborah." She laughed it off, but her voice cracked. Ridiculous rumors. Our grid is stable. Nathan stood up slowly. Stable like the flare-up you deleted from the logs 3 weeks ago? The one tied directly to your unpermitted spa installation. He opened the folder and started sliding printed graphs across the table. Spikes, timestamps, Nate's signed statement. The room went graveyard quiet except for the low hum coming through the ceiling. Deborah's face went from Botox pink to sheet white. Those documents are private board materials. Not anymore, Nathan said. State Fire Marshal's office opens at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'm walking in with everything, including the photos of your spa sitting on top of the exact violation you tried to pin on my daughter's playhouse. Nate Rivera stood up next, voice shaking but clear. She ordered the reroute. She told me to bury the reports. I'm done covering for her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One mom actually stood and said, "You risked our kids for a hot tub?" The room turned on Deborah like a pack of wolves that had finally realized the shepherd was the wolf. She tried the classic Karen pivot. This is harassment. I'll sue. But the words died when the lights flickered again and the junction outside actually popped with a loud electrical snap everyone heard. Nathan didn't raise his voice once. He just looked at her and said, "You spent months terrorizing a grieving family over a painted box. Meanwhile, you turned our entire neighborhood into a fire waiting to happen. Enjoy explaining that to the state tomorrow." Deborah stormed out, clipboard trembling so hard the papers scattered like confetti at a funeral. But the real show was just beginning. Because the next morning, instead of Nathan showing up at the marshal's office alone, half the neighborhood followed him. Turns out when Karen finally pokes the wrong bear, the whole forest shows up with pitchforks. The state fire marshal's team rolled in at 9:17 a.m. 2 white SUVs, reflective vests, the works. They didn't knock. They went straight to the junction behind Nathan's fence, scanned it, and the lead investigator actually whistled low. This thing's 30 seconds from arc flash. Who's responsible for this grid? Deborah came sprinting across the lawn in her housecoat, hair still in curlers, screaming about private property and HOA jurisdiction. The investigator didn't even blink. "Ma'am, this ties into county infrastructure. Your board's negligence just triggered mandatory shutdown and full audit. We'll need every log you claim to have deleted." Nathan handed over the folder, the load tester, Nate's statement, and the flash drive with 6 months of buried data. The marshal glanced at the numbers, then at Deborah, and said the words every HOA tyrant dreads. This meets criteria for criminal negligence referral. The neighborhood watched in real time as the team isolated the load with a metallic clank that echoed like a jail cell door. The constant hum that had haunted us for weeks simply stopped. Silence so loud it felt like the whole block exhaled. Lily ran out of the playhouse and hugged her dad's leg while the other kids cheered like it was the 4th of July. By noon, the HOA accounts were frozen. By 3 p.m., the board was dissolved pending investigation. By evening, the interim administrator announced full restitution, safety retrofits, and sweetest of all, a new rule. No president could ever again override electrical safety for a personal spa. Deborah's house went up for sale 2 weeks later. Last I heard, she was moving to a condo with zero HOA and a strict no hot tubs clause. Nathan never gloated. He just sat on his porch watching Lily paint new flowers on the playhouse that was never coming down. When I asked him how it felt, he shrugged and said, "I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my daughter to keep her safe place and maybe teach the neighborhood that real authority isn't a clipboard. It's doing the right thing when no one's watching." And that, folks, is how one quiet dad and a kid's playhouse brought down an entire HOA empire. The moral? Never underestimate the guy who knows more about fire than the woman screaming about it. If you've got your own HOA horror story, drop it in the comments. And if you're watching from a neighborhood with rules stricter than prison, hit subscribe, because next time Karen comes for your backyard, you'll want to know exactly how to make her regret it.